20 most iconic fragrances of all time. Bonjour fragrance lovers, this is Clémence, I talk about fragrance and welcome back. Happy International Fragrance Week. Great occasion to talk about 20 fragrances that absolutely mark history, and I'm not talking of in 2010 or in recent years, I'm talking about real tea. I'm talking about the one that really mark what we're smelling nowadays. I'm gonna talk less about the scent, but more about a little story to share with you. It's gonna be quite quick, so bear with me, let's go. Number 1, Kouros YSL, Yves Saint Laurent. We are in 1981 and Pierre Bourdon created this fragrance. The inspiration is antique Greek gods was celebrating the strong alpha male, you know, so it's really an interesting fragrance though because it's animalic and but at the same time fresh and light. Number 2, Shalimar Guerlain. If we're talking about iconic, I think we definitely have to talk about Shalimar 1925. Can you imagine? We still wear this fragrance and it's been more than 100 years. The story behind the fragrance is a romantic tale between the Emperor Mughal Shah Jahan, I hope I say correctly, who built the Taj Mahal for his wife. Jacques Guerlain decided to take this beautiful story as an inspiration for Shalimar, and that's why, you know, like the bottle looks that vibe. And Shalimar is actually the name of the historic garden that are in the Taj Mahal. Number 5, Chanel. Of course, we talk about Shalimar. Shall we go back 4 years before for the launch of number 5, which is a fragrance for women created by a woman. Well, technically it's Hermes that did it. Utterly feminist for the time. If you ever wonder why is it called number 5, it's really simple. Hermes, the creator, the perfumer, created a few samples for Mademoiselle Chanel to pick one from, and she chose number 5, and actually she chose number 22 a year after. Revolution at the time because there were the introduction of highly concentrated synthetic molecules such as aldehyde that smells a bit fizzy. We also compare it to strawberry, lemon-like fizzy champagne scent. Basically, they kind of like drop the bottle inside, the bottle of aldehyde inside the perfume, makes it ultra strong, ultra fizzy. And then the trend was launched. Everyone was wearing a number 5 and everyone wanted a fragrance that smelled like number 5. Voilà. So pour Monsieur Chanel, we stay in the Chanel, of course. I had to because it's iconic, you know. So Monsieur is really interesting because it was launched in 1955 in a world that, okay, for men there's aftershave lotion, there's splash on, there's cologne, but there's not really perfume. Like a perfume for men was really like, oh no, we do not wear perfume. This is for women, which is still now sometimes in the mind of some people, which is absolutely crazy. But anyway, it's known as the first masculine fragrance, so actually marketed this way. A beautiful chypre fragrance, lemon, sister slapdanon, so slightly leathery, and in the 70s, 50s, like people all love chypre. Now it's coming back, but it still have that vintage smell. I really recommend you to try the eau de parfum with this slightly almondish tone. It's beautiful. One CK1. We are in 1994. This fragrance celebrates individuality, diversity, which is quite something at the time. Because this fragrance is the first fragrance that is genderless. It's unisex. It's sold in Sephora, in the women's fragrance, and in the men's fragrance. Also, you remember those advertising that was extremely shocking for the time in black and white. It was grunge, it was rock and roll. Kate Moss was the agerie and she was like all over the place. Very provocative and actually remained one of the best selling launch ever. Opium by Yves Saint Laurent, talking about scandal. 1977, it was already known to have like a scandalous and provocative haute couture looks and stuff like that. It was actually banned in some countries. Can you imagine? The huge backlash, very controversial, the fact that of course it's called opium, you know, for women. But actually it was inspired by the Empress of China. Indeed, the bottle shape looked like the buttered, lacquered container that in Asian culture you have tied at the belt, you know, and actually sometimes it was full with opium, but that's a secret. Angel, Thierry Mugler. We are in 1992 and this is an amazing year because of course I was born.
No, God! No, God, please, no!
first gourmand fragrance ever. Full of chocolate notes, and it's really polarizing because people were sick of it. It's overpowering, it's intoxicating, but in a gourmand, sweety way, which was not the case before. Nobody's seen that before. Fun fact is there was 608 trial before having the formula that we have nowadays, so apparently hard to create. Chanel, I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. Coco Mademoiselle, Chanel 2001 that it was released, and why am I adding it? Because it's still one of the best-selling fragrances ever, if it's not the one. It actually won a lot of awards for the advertisement that was literally like a little movie. Let's see if you remember those. L'interdit Givenchy. The muse behind this fragrance was Audrey Hepburn. So when you wear l'interdit, you wear a little bit of that vibe. However, it changed a lot nowadays. It was created by Hubert de Givenchy. Yes, you say Givenchy. The perfumer was Fabrice Fabron. I don't know if you say it like that, but... It was back in 1957, so it was actually the first celebrity fragrance ever. With a cult little quote by Mrs. Audrey. Oh, mais c'est interdit! Did she say something like that? Yeah, I think. Air du temps by Nina Ricci. So we are after the Second World War in Europe, 1948. This fragrance was created as an antidote because the mood was really low, of course. So this was there to basically cheer up everyone. And it made quite a revolution because at the time it was really heavy, cheap scent, very overly synthetic note and powerful, and this was slightly more floral and airy scent. The bottle, so you see the bird symbolize the peace, white bird always symbolize peace. Voilà. Bois di Parma Colonia. We are going in Italy now. Enough of France. 1916. Formula is still unchanged since more than 100 years. It's fresh, soft, iconic and celebrating Italian charm. Actually loved by many celebrities by the time. Gary Grant, Audrey Hepburn, again, Avant-garde. Next one, Miss Dior. Of course, if we talk about iconic, Dior was one of the houses that revolutionized perfumery back in the time. A family love story because Christian Dior had a sister. Her name was Catherine, and they grew up together around Granville. They used to play around garden, and there used to be a lot of gardenias, lilies of the valley, so a lot of white flowers. So that's why the fragrance smell, like very floral back in the time, at least the original formula. But one day, Catherine got arrested for being a resistance spy. Go Catherine! She was captured and she was actually deported in a Nazi concentration camp. Fortunately enough, she came back to her house safe and sound, but Mr. Christian Dior was really worried he would never see his sister again. He created that scent as a tribute to her. Amazing piece of history. So when you wear the original, you will think of that, and I think it would make you feel good. I don't know, it makes me feel good. Hermes Calèche. This fragrance symbolizes everything that is Hermes. We are in 1961 and Hermes stand out because they want fragrances that doesn't really smell too much feminine. They are bored of those fragrances that smell too feminine. So they want a bit of masculinity in the scent. They want something a bit more genderless, or a style that show up an Amazon woman. So a strong woman, because women are as strong as men. It's classy, but it doesn't shout too much. Faultlessly classy. Aromatic elixir. So this is one of Clinique's oldest perfume. Really polarizing as well because it's extremely strong, let's face it. Someone wearing that, you directly know it. But still, one of the best performer fragrance in terms of best-selling. Because actually, they, I don't know if it's still the case now, they do sell 14 bottles of aromatic elixir every hour. It's really a scent that represents the 70s. It smells rich, intense, patchouli-like. Classic Jean-Paul Gaultier. Sure, we could talk about Le Male as well, but the classic was launched earlier in 1953, represented by those corsets, so very provocative back in the time. But Jean-Paul, he likes provocative as well. Oriental, floral, and actually if you smell nowadays the classic, for me, you wouldn't be able to guess that it was launched so earlier on. It does smell very modern to me. Maison Francis Cœur des Gens, Baccarat Rouge 540. But Clémence, you said before you don't want to hear about like 2 new fragrances and stuff? Indeed. But why I did choose this fragrance in this top is because this fragrance celebrates a birthday, the 250th birthday of the house of Baccarat that created like crystals and things like that. So an extremely luxurious house. It's part of a big history as one of the scents that really mark our era nowadays. You've seen like a lot of men wearing this fragrance, which was quite new because when you smell it, it's quite sweet, you know, like it smells like luxurious, but it's round. And suddenly, like it was really, everyone would wear this one. He opened the way for a lot of fragrances and a lot of men to wear what they like. Go back to the real tea, the real vintage. Jean Patou Joy. If you don't know Jean Patou Joy, that's probably one of the fragrances, a bit like a number 5, 1929. And this fragrance is definitely one of the most iconic. When you think about history of perfume, you will definitely think of Jean Patou Joy. Patou created that fragrance to soothe and cheer up his American patrons, who suffered from the ravages of the Wall Street crash in 29. The Parisian perfumer decided to create this scent to put a little bit of joy into people's mood. It is no longer produced. To create joy, 1 bottle of fragrance, you need to put 10,000 jasmine flowers and 25 dozen roses. Imagine, we don't do that anymore, do we? Next one, Diorissimo. Again a Dior, but yes, we're into the classic, you know. And I chose to talk about it for one reason, because it's a very interesting case. The purpose of this fragrance was to smell like Lily of the Valley, because Christian Dior loved Lily of the Valley. The thing with this fragrance is that it doesn't contain Lily of the Valley at all. And you'll be like, what? But yes, because Lily of the Valley is a mute flower, means that you can't extract the oil from these flowers. It doesn't produce this oil, so you can't really put it in the fragrance. It's impossible. So what we do is that in the laboratory you reproduce synthetically with different notes. You create an accord that smells like Lily of the Valley, but it's not directly the Lily of the Valley that you're smelling. So that's why different brands can have a lily that smells totally different, because it's their interpretation of how it should smell a Lily of the Valley. This particular accord was created with flowers like ylang ylang, amaryllis, jasmine, and barania. Little thing is that it was actually a Princess Diana's favorite fragrance. 4711 Eau de Cologne. When we're talking about classic, we have to talk about this cologne, because it's not just a cologne, it's the cologne. Voila. Was launched 228 years ago and it's still on sale. You can still buy it. The favorite one of Napoleon Bonaparte. He used to order so many bottles of this fragrance, apparently. It's called the Aqua Mirabilis, because back in the time as well, it was reputed to have relaxation propriety. And that's why I do use it a lot in the morning and after shower. It's really working, guys. Aqua Mirabilis. Eau des Miracles. Miracle water, if you prefer. Sisley Eau du Soir. Whether it's art, music, painting, the inspiration behind a piece of art is always, most of the time, a love story. Hubert Dornano it's the founder, created this fragrance for his wife in 1990, because they used to have some stroll through the garden of Alcazar in Seville. And actually, this fragrance is full of syringa flower, which is iconic in Seville. At dusk, this flower is blossoming and create a very strong scent. It was advised back in the time to wear that on a date or with your loved one in need. Rive Gauche, Yves Saint Laurent. Rive Gauche for men, because we've talked a lot about the women. It's really an avant-garde fragrances, and why? Because this is a barbershop fragrance. But barbershop fragrance were kind of popular still, but it's a very different one. Astringent, very sharp and green. And we didn't have such a fragrance powerful in the fougère category. It was more like a freshies, you know. Vibe between this is to allow men to be themselves. That was the whole message. And it was created by Jacques Cavalier. Just to let you know, Jacques Cavalier, massive master perfumer. You've got on the side all the fragrance he created. This is crazy. Hungary water. Be like, but Clémence, what is that fragrance? I've never heard of it, and you tell me it's iconic. What is it? Well, actually, darling, it's the first fragrance, modern fragrance ever created. When I say modern, it's like a combination of different ingredients together to create a scent, an accord, and something. Because before it was like more like, oh, the essence of rose, oh, the essence of jasmine, oh, the musk one, but not really a full composition. It was made of scented oils blended in alcohol solution in 1370 at the command of Queen Elizabeth of Hungary, and that's why it's called like this. Whew, that was long. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of like storytelling history. I think this is fascinating, and it's important if you're passionate about fragrance to actually know how those things, because it actually give you a little bit of more argument and a bit more of understanding of how we came up with those fragrance and blah blah blah, and voila. So it's interesting for you to know, because knowing history is power. Power, baby. And I see you soon. Bye now. Je t'emmène dans mon paradis bleu.